All right, here we go. So I just want to go over one or two things on page 19, maybe just two problems for anyone that wants some extra review with titration calculations. And let's take a look at number 2 and number 3 together. So first, let's just make sure we know our formula. If we're doing kind of your more typical titration calculation problem, we know that our formula, remember, is MEV MEV equals MEV MEV. So if we are asked to find something like molarity or volume of our acid or base in our problem, again, it's MEV equals MEV. Remember, M is molarity, E is our equivalence. Remember, that's the number of H's or OH's in the formula, and V is our volume. And for this kind of more basic or more standard titration calculation, our volume units can be milliliters or liters. We don't have to specify. So number 2 asks, what volume of 0.250 molar sodium hydroxide will be required to neutralize 116 milliliters of 0.0625 molar H2SO4? So we're looking for volume. So we're looking for volume, I should say, of our base. So that tells me VB, that is our X. So let's go ahead and plug in everything else. So starting with molarity of the acid. Molarity of the acid, 0.0625 molar for the sulfuric acid. The equivalence is 2. There are 2 acidic hydrogens there, H2. And then the volume is 116.0 milliliters. And then that's that equal to our molarity of the base is 0.250 molar. It's sodium hydroxide. There's just one OH, so the equivalence is 1. And then VB is what we're trying to find. So to solve this, I would just multiply everything together on the acid side. So 0.0625 times 2 times 116. And then divide that by 0.25. And I get my volume as being 58. But then let's check sig figs and units. And I think as we look at our molarity, yeah, both have 3 sig figs. So let's make that 0.0. And then for our units, volume units just need to be the same. So if we start with milliliters for VA, we should have milliliters as the unit for our base. Go ahead and try number 3. Again, maybe pause the video, set it up, solve for milliliters of our acid, and see how that goes. All right, and I'm back in 3, 2, 1. Okay, as far as what our setup should look like. In number 3, we're solving for our volume of the acid. So this is what our left side should look like. And then we know everything about the base. This is what the side of the base should look like. Yep. So multiply everything on the base side. So 0.1 times 2 times 25. Then divide that by 0.1. And for our volume of the acid, we should have 50.0 milliliters. Then to finish this is probably the last thing I'll go over here, original pH values for the HCl and BaOH2 solutions. So this is something that some of us struggled with on pages 10 and 11 and even page 9, original pH values. So we know to find pH. pH can be found a number of ways, but the easiest way is to take the negative log of our H plus concentration. But remember, we can only use this formula if we're given the molarity of the acid. That formula, finding the negative log of the H plus concentration, again, only works with an acid. It doesn't work with the base. So I'll talk about the base here in a couple seconds. But We can do the pH of the acid fairly easily. We have its concentration there. So to get the pH of our acid, we just take the negative log of 0.100, and I don't need to multiply it by anything because there's just one hydrogen and one HCl. So I just do the negative log of 0.1, and our pH would be 1. And I'm not going to stress too much about the sig figs here. I'm just going to put 2 decimals. So we'll say the pH is 1.00. If we wanted to be technical about it, you can remember with pH, the sig figs are just the decimal places. The ones place doesn't count as significant. So technically it should be 1.000. But again, let's just stick with 2 decimal places for pH. All right, next up we have this guy, our base. We want the pH of the base. Now, we cannot use our first formula. Bases aren't going to give us, at least not directly, they don't give us H+, but they do give us OH-. So if I'm asked to find the pH of a base, that would be the first thing I would find. I would find the POH. So to find the POH, we know it's the negative log of our OH- concentration. And we have that. So I'm going to go, okay, it's my negative log of 0.100. And then at some point, or I really should say at this point, some of you might be screaming at the computer. This is one of those things we struggle with. There are 2 OHs there. So if we have a subscript and we're trying to get POH or pH, we have to multiply our concentration by that subscript. So we'd have to actually do the negative log of 0.1 times 2. So again, if there's a subscript there and we're trying to get pH or POH, we have to multiply the concentration by that subscript. So we wind up with our pH as being 0.70. And then to finish this, remember pH plus POH always add up to 14. So I do a little math, and I get my pH of the base as being 13.30. So just a couple things to watch out for when we're using MEV and then asked to find the pH of the acid and or base.